Look at what these bastards have done to Wales. They've taken our coal, our water, our steel, they buy our homes and they live in them for a fortnight every year. And what have they given us? Absolutely nothing. We've been exploited, raped, controlled and punished by the English. And that's who you're playing this afternoon. It's always nice to see a fixture with a bit of bite. Wales have been playing rugby matches against England for 138 years, and the two nations have had niggle for 230,000 years. And whilst it would be absurd to suggest that Samson Lee is going to this week's game fired up by the thought of getting revenge for Wales's rights being annexed by the Laws in Wales Act of 1535, Wales v England is always a fixture with more bite than a petting zoo run by Scott Baldwin. For me, England against Wales is the best fixture in Test rugby. England v Scotland may be older, New Zealand v South Africa may traditionally carry more ranking points, but England against Wales is the most interwoven and tightly fought of all international rugby rivalries. The gulf between the two sides is never longer than the bridge that separates them. Between their first meeting on February 19th, 1881 and the encounter at the 2015 Rugby World Cup, the two sides had played 126 times. In those games, there had been 12 draws. England had won 56 times. Wales had won 56 times. In fact, England's initial run, winning 7 of the first 9 games, is still the biggest total wins lead one side has ever had over the other, the early matches between the pair being filled with fascinating stories and countless characters. Here's a handful. The first two England teams to play Wales included Temple Gordon, which is apparently not the name of an iPhone game, but a doctor who was very, very good friends with Arthur Conan Doyle, and is actually believed to be the partial inspiration for the character of John Watson. In 1884, Wales almost beat England for the first time ever, but for a drop goal by Wales pole vault champion and Olympian Charles Taylor, ironically failing to get over the bar by just a fraction. Thrilled by the atmosphere, RFU bigwig Arthur Budd picked himself to play in the 1882 game, but under the name A.B. James, so that no one in the media would suspect what he'd done. In 1893, Wales beat England with just minutes to play by kicking the first ever penalty goal in international rugby. And kick-off in that very first fixture back in 1881 was delayed 40 minutes because 2 of the Welsh team hadn't turned up. Wales ended up picking 2 Welsh qualified students from the crowd, making them kind of the Tom Pridys of their time, with both original selections claiming to have lost their invitation. One of them then went on to play for England the following year. This act of vicious traitory is not all that uncommon. With the two nations sat in such proximity, they almost share a pool of players. Around 8% of all Wales internationals have been born in England, and the single city to have been the birthplace of the most players in one England 15 was Cardiff, contributing 4 players in 1922. And as someone who grew up supporting Wales in England, who would qualify for either nation and would suffer the schoolyard consequences of my choice after every single Wales loss for often months at a time, I know as well as anyone that this overlap only fuels the fire between the two sides. However, the rivalry is built on much more than history and proximity. For all the bullshit preached about the sport's traditional inclusivity, the early days of rugby football were essentially full-on class warfare, the sport's public-schooled proprietors eager their game not be dirtied by the working class folk. Rugby was a sport created in a posh school, spread through posh universities, and then popularised as a means of adult recreation for those who attended posh schools. Simply put, English rugby celebrated posh on a scale only since matched by Victoria Beckham's ego. This is where Wales comes in. After rugby was introduced to the nation by a schoolteacher who had studied with rugby school graduates at Cambridge, the game started to spread in very different circles to those it walked in England. Whereas rugby remained the sport of the middle class across the bridge, in Wales it was taken up in working village communities. Every town soon had its own rugby club, a hub of local activity. And unlike in the north of England, this was actually helped by the amateur nature of the game. Whereas Wales's best footballers went off to go and play professionally in England and weren't seen again, Wales's best rugbymen stuck around and worked another job. They were teachers, miners, steelworkers, postmen. They were normal blokes who you could see out in the shops on a Tuesday or buy a pint for on a Saturday after the game. In Wales, rugby was the sport of the people. And in their annual fixture against England, Wales had the chance to take on the man at what was quite literally his own game. And it also happened to be a game they were pretty good at. Whilst in many ways times have changed in this regard, the background still remains true. Of England's 31-man squad for the 2015 Rugby World Cup, only 3 players hailed from state-funded schools, the majority coming from independent selective or fee-paying schools, with a decent few boarding schools also in there for good measure. Of Wales' 31, however, only 3 weren't educated at state schools, a complete reverse in socio-political background. And whilst none of this history may be in the players' heads, any England team playing any Wales team will always have, on either side, players who remember losing to the other side, who remember the late heartbreak, the drama, the tight calls that define this fixture virtually every year. Which leads us on to this weekend's game with the 2 unbeaten teams in this year's Six Nations going head-to-head in the Cardiff Cauldron, the winner set to take control of the championship. Having beaten Ireland on the opening weekend, England proceeded to rip into France. I didn't make a full video on that game because France's flaws were so obvious I figured doing analysis on them would be patronising to anyone other than Jacques Brunel. But England exploited France's decision to pick 2 centres on the wings and a donkey at fullback by just placing attacking kicks all over the field, a very similar tactic to against Ireland where they exploited Henshaw's centrehood to massive gain. It's too early to say whether this England team has a mass knack for exploiting weaknesses or whether it's just a coincidence that France and Ireland had very similar pressure points that Owen Farrell is custom made to press. Wales, on the other hand, are in more mixed fortunes. An abysmal first half against France and a shoddy performance against Italy seem to stand out above the fact they haven't just won 2 games from 2. They won their last 11 games in a row, equalling the team's all-time record. That means this Saturday, Wales are playing England for a chance to break their all-time wins record and potentially take the 2019 Six Nations title. And this may not even be the most titanic Wales-England clash of 2019. There's a very reasonable chance these 2 teams could meet in either the quarterfinals or even the final come Japan. This fixture is always big, but this year, the bite doesn't come any bigger than this. So, big game on Saturday, sizable encounter. You've got a decent way to spend your Saturday tea time if you hadn't already. Beyond that, there's quite a few things I need to get into, so I'm going to just quickly go. You may have noticed in the last week I had 4 videos removed from YouTube, 4 videos taken down, which is unfortunate and frustrating and annoying, and a copyright strike put against the channel, the Squidge Rugby channel, which is a huge shame. But Sky New Zealand recognised I'd used footage from Super Rugby, which I had in a number of videos, and they put a strike against, as I say, 4 videos, and had 4 of them taken down. 3 of those I've now re-uploaded, and I've replaced the Super Rugby footage because in those 3 it was less than 4 seconds, and I'd replaced them with a little extra treat that you may want to see. Thank you to everyone incidentally that has rewatched those videos. I do greatly appreciate it. The one that hasn't gone back up was the one on the Crusaders, because they kind of play in Super Rugby, so basically the entire video was Super Rugby footage, so I left it. However, if you do still want to watch that, it is still available. If you head to the Rugby Pass website, it is up there. So if you want to, either just Google Rugby Pass, Squidge Rugby, Crusaders video, or I tweeted out a link to it the other day, you can still find it there. You can still find it online if you do want to rewatch it. So thank you to everyone that has. Thank you also to everyone that has supported the channel on Patreon. It makes a huge difference to me being able to do this, to how I do this, to me being able to eat whilst doing this. I am going to be trying to go back towards posting videos or making videos on as many of the games as possible. I began writing ones on both Wales, Italy and England, France, but to be entirely honest, the work I was doing on them wasn't up to the standards I like to set on the channel, so I decided to scrap them. I decided to just put them to one side, which was a shame, and I'm sorry to anyone that was looking forward to those videos. There's a little bit in that one. I'm going to hopefully move the bits that were workable over into other videos, but I apologise for that. Beyond that, thank you to Rugby Warfare, who sponsored the channel. If anyone does want to look through their website, look at all the wonderful things on it, and then come to a point in which you think, that's the thing I want, that's what I want to buy. When you get to checkout, just between me and you, type in SQ and then 20, the number 20, not the word 20, and you get 20% off, like off whatever you're buying. It's amazing. Just don't tell too many people, but kind of actually just tell literally everybody. And then you may also notice that I'm wearing a really rather snazzy jersey, which is the Malawi Sevens jersey. Those of you that have been with the channel a while may remember I joined on a campaign to send the Malawi Sevens team to the African Rugby Championships for the first time ever. They've never sent a Sevens team out before. And they've now reached the funding to do that. So they're sending a team out. They're still, however, looking to secure a future for the team beyond that one competition. They're looking to make the team sustainable and work out what they can do with them in the future and keep them going. So if you do want to continue to chuck a few pennies at them, there's a link in the description to the new fundraiser to try and maintain the future of the Malawi Sevens team. You can also, anyone that donates above $60 can get one of these really quite lovely, they're actually really nice jerseys for yourself. So you can join in on that. There's also the Super Rugby League. The Super Rugby League is going to be that next week, as there's going to be plenty more content coming out in the next few weeks that hopefully is not going to be removed by Sky New Zealand.
Chris Ashton, bit of heavy boot.